Well, tonight we start with new child sex abuse allegations against a suspended Catholic deacon and attorney. A new civil lawsuit claims major Catholic donors offered hush money to the alleged victim's family to try to make the case against VM Wheeler go away. Eyewitness investigator David Hammer and our partners at the Times-Picayune New Orleans Advocate broke that story of the criminal case against Wheeler, and now they have the details from the new lawsuit.
Catholic deacon and attorney VM Wheeler is out on a $95,000 bond after his arrest on child sex abuse charges and his suspension from ministry and his law firm. But few details of the case were known until a civil lawsuit was filed last Friday. It claims that Wheeler took showers with a 10 or 11-year-old boy and had oral sex with him on 3 separate occasions in 2001 and 2002. But what allegedly happened when the accuser's family came forward could have larger implications for the local church. The lawsuit alleges there was a pressure campaign by prominent Catholic benefactors to reinstate Wheeler, including an offer of hush money. According to the lawsuit, the boy's mother learned Wheeler tried to get the alleged victim and his older brother into bed during a ski trip. The boy's mother allegedly knew that Wheeler wanted to become a deacon and reported what happened in 2002 to the retired Archbishop Philip Hannon and to the head of the church's diaconate program. Both of those former church officials are now deceased. 16 years later, Wheeler was ordained a deacon by Archbishop Gregory Amond in 2018. According to the lawsuit, when the accuser learned Wheeler had been ordained, he came forward to Archbishop Amond with more specific allegations that Wheeler had groped him. Despite the mother's report to church officials in 2002, the lawsuit says Amond told the accuser and his family in 2018 that there was no record of any previous complaints in Wheeler's file. The accuser didn't tell his parents about the oral sex and showers until 2020. Now in his early 30s, the accuser and his father met again with Amond last July, and that's allegedly when Amond said, "Now I have to do something." Amond publicly announced Wheeler was being suspended from ministry 10 days later. An archdiocesan spokesman said as soon as the accuser alleged sexual abuse, the archbishop removed Wheeler from ministry. Also alleged in the lawsuit, at least 4 prominent Catholic benefactors, including a retired judge, put pressure on the boy's parents to drop the case. It alleges that one businessman, identified only as Mr. R, offered the alleged victim $400,000 to stop cooperating with a Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office criminal investigation. It says Mr. R backed off the following day and said he didn't want anything to do with it. The lawsuit says local attorney and former Harahan mayor Vinnie Mosca met with the boy's father and mother last summer, telling them that if criminal charges were filed against Wheeler, it would be a, quote, media feeding frenzy. Mosca admitted saying that, but told me that he had represented the accuser's family for 35 years and was simply telling them what could happen if they filed a case. He did admit that he was aggravated that the lawsuit implicates Hannon. He also acknowledged telling the parents that Wheeler had passed a polygraph test that could exonerate him. The alleged victim filed a criminal complaint in October, and Wheeler was arrested by JPSO March 8th. The district attorney is still deciding whether to prosecute, and Wheeler has denied all allegations against him. Mosca said he was not representing Wheeler when he met with the family last year, but now he's one of Wheeler's criminal defense attorneys. He said he didn't feel that it was a conflict of interest to have represented the accuser and now represent the accused. David Hammer, Eyewitness News.